Expand on this from us. I mean, is this something you're seeking? Is a better relationship with the states? Would you say that's a priority of yours?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I mean, if you go back to the inception of the agency, Rob, and the legislation that was passed, the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, those very key environmental statutes that we passed through Congress, you know, the Congress has been very intentional about making sure that states have a role. You know, that the states have a voice, but beyond a voice, actually responsibility and leadership that they can show at improving our water quality and air quality across the country. And the past administration, to your point, simply disregarded that. They used the authority of Washington, D.C. They used the power of Washington, D.C. to coerce, to walk over the states. In fact, you know, they looked at states as mere vessels of federal will, and that's not the proper approach either in achieving good outcomes, and it's definitely not the right approach as it relates to the statute and the Constitution. And so we've restored a focus here on cooperative federalism. And I think what, Rob, we need to recognize again is that you know, the EPA has a very important role to play as it relates to air quality and water quality that traverse or, you know, transboundary across state line. But there's a very important role for states to play. And the way that this has worked historically is that the states and the EPA work together. They partner together to ensure good outcomes. And the past administration turned that on its head. I'll give you one statistic. Under the Clean Air Act, with respect to President Bush I, President Clinton, and President Bush II, those three presidential administrations issued 5 federal implementation plans under the Clean Air Act, 5 total. The past administration issued 56. And when I say coercive federalism, that's exactly what I'm referring to. Because when you do that 56 times compared to 5 over the 3 previous administrations, what you're saying is we're going to run over, we're going to coerce, we're going to intimidate, we're going to force the states to do things that otherwise, you know, they're supposed to be doing, and we're going to do it in their place. And that's just simply a wrong way of doing business. And what happened as a result, Rob, is litigation. You mentioned North Dakota. As Attorney General of Oklahoma, I joined with Wayne Stingham and North Dakota at suing the EPA for its overreach. In fact, I've been, you know, criticized by some of my opponents as saying you've put somebody in charge of the EPA who sued the EPA 13, 14, 15 times. My response to that is they deserved it. And they deserved it because they exceeded their statutory authority, they exceeded their constitutional authority, and when they got outside of their lane, they got sued and they got stopped. And so they didn't even achieve good environmental outcomes. All they did was incur litigation cost in the process. So it's a much better process to work with the states, to partner with the states, obviously follow the statute as passed by Congress.
What about the people who say that your approach, sort of pushing some of this authority back to the state or putting the state back in the driver's seat, I guess, so to say, on some of these regulations, is going to make it harder to protect the environment? What's your message to them?
Well, look, I mean, look at the past administration's environmental record and ask yourself, what did they achieve? With respect to water, you had Flint and Gold King in Colorado. With respect to Superfund sites, you have 1,322 approximately Superfund sites across the country, which is more than when President Obama came in. Air attainment, still at 40% non-attainment in this country with respect to ozone. Roughly 130 to 140 million people living in non-attainment. What's so great about that record? On carbon, they tried twice to regulate CO2 and struck out twice. Supreme Court told them in UARG, the UARG decision, that they overreached, and they told them in the Clean Power Plan that they overreached. So I don't quite understand the environmental left when they say that somehow what the past administration, you know, was done was so great. We're going to focus on air attainment. You know, we're going to take existing, you know, regulations and work on compliance and assistance with the states. We're going to come into Superfund sites and reimagine the architecture to actually get some of those sites off the list. You know, with respect to water infrastructure, the President's talked about investing in water infrastructure through the infrastructure package that's being discussed this year. So, you know, I really think that we need to focus on metrics and objectives and then look at our record compared to the Obama record at the end of 4 years, and I think we're going to do really well.
You know, I think you make a really good point. When I have looked at a lot of the regulatory initiatives coming out of the Obama administration over the 8 years that they were in office, what I saw a lot of times seemed like a priority that was aimed more at creating headaches for industries, I guess I should say, that they don't like, than it did protecting the environment. I mean, to me,
right.
They weren't asking the question and saying, okay, well, how can we develop coal responsibly and keep improving? How can we develop oil responsibly and keep improving the safety records there? It was, what sort of, you know, landmines can we put in place to create headaches for these industries so that we move on to other things?
It was all about power, Rob.
Right.
I mean, think about the Waters of the United States rule. You know, land use decisions are the province of the states and local towns and cities and private property owners across the country. What did the EPA do with the Waters United States rule, WOTUS, in 2015? They took that over. You know, that was all about power. They wanted to make land use decisions in the place of private property owners and the states. And so what you're saying is spot on. I mean, in using regulatory power to pick winners and losers, that's what the past administration did. What our aim should be is fuel diversity. Our aim should be that as we generate electricity, as an example, that we want utility companies and consumers making decisions on what provides the most stability with the power grid and the most cost effectiveness. So coal and natural gas and oil and hydro and renewables and nuclear, all those should be part of our mix. The EPA shouldn't come in and say we favor some of those and we disfavor others. And that's exactly what took place in the past administration. And it's not what regulators should do. I mean, we exist to make rules that provide fairness and equity to all those in the marketplace and not to pick winners and losers. I mean, I've made this comment many times, Rob. Regulations ought to make things regular. It ought to provide, a notice to those in the industry and the citizens, here's what's expected of you, and then give time to allocate resources to comply and make sure that as those rules are adopted, you actually hear from the voice of those individuals that are impacted. So this is really getting back to the basics, getting back to the fundamentals at our agency, focusing on core mission of air quality and water quality and land remediation under the Superfund program, and making sure that we have objectives and metrics that we can celebrate progress as opposed to simply bumper stickers. I will tell you this, the past administration, there was quite a bit of talk but very little action. We're trying to do the inverse of that. We're trying to, quit talking about things and actually go out and execute and do things and make sure that we improve the environment across the country. And also do this, know that we can be pro-growth, pro-jobs, and pro-environment. We don't have to choose between the two, because here's what people don't know. Since 1980, we've seen tremendous growth in our gross domestic product as a country, but we've also seen a 65% reduction in those air pollutants that we regulate under the Clean Air Act. That's the American way. The American way is to produce and also to manage. The past administration just simply tried to hoard. They said keep 2/3 of fossil fuels in the ground. That's not how we do business as a country.
What message could you send to the people who work in those industries in our state about your leadership going forward?
That we're going to strike this pro-growth, pro-environment balance, that we're going to make sure their voices are heard in the rulemaking process, that we're going to respect rule of law, actually stay within the framework that Congress has passed, that we're going to restore, partnership through cooperative federalism with the states, and that we're going to do rulemaking, the way you're supposed to do it. You propose a rule, take comment, and finalize it, and not allow people to sue us and then cut deals before a court through sue and settle or regulatory litigation. So that's what the past administration did. We're going to do it the right way, and we're going to focus on good outcomes and strike this balance between growth, jobs, and the environment.